Welcome to our third video of analysis for this playlist. Please see the first comment below if you'd like to see the timestamps, if you want to jump to a certain part, but you really need all three for it all to come together and to make sense. Let's go into the video. This history we have here on this page for the Phrygians starts with the same entry that ended the timeline for the Hittites. So 1200 BCE, Phrygians invade Anatolia and destroy the Hittite Empire. I would like to remind us of a few things we learned about the Phrygians. This is from Herodotus. As the Macedonians say, these Phrygians were called Bryges as long as they dwelt in Europe, where they were neighbors of the Macedonians. So we're going to come back to that. But when they changed their home to Asia, they changed their name also and were called Phrygians. Now we only had two things to go on for the Phrygians from this page of the Bryges, and that was the Celtic Brigantes and the Germanic Burgundians. So this is what they give us for two names that could be cognate with the Bryges, with the meaning being maybe mountain, connected with Breg or Berg. So what we tried to do was create a map to show the potential spheres of influence for the Brigantes and the Burgundians. And we said, how important could this map be? If you'd like to see how this map came together, we just did a short video trying to build this map. So what we need to do is also speak about this video that we did about the Celts, key moments of Celtic history. Just to mention this important perspective, or this key question that we were asking from this video, is this expansion towards the east for the Celts realistic? And we also saw a very interesting connection with the Druids, which could support the questioning of this expansion, because this goes on to be important for the forming of the kingdom of Galatia with the Celts. And we see it here for the modern day country of Turkey. But we were asking, should we be looking towards the Iberian Peninsula? Because we still have a region called Galicia in Spain. But when you do that, if we think about this map, so these would be the kingdoms of Anatolia, you can't just move Galatia and then leave Phrygia, because this history is going to be connected. So we're also looking for Phrygia on the Iberian Peninsula. So this is why, I was saying, could this map be significant? Because it's possible that this could be showing us the history of the Phrygians. So we just think about that quote from Herodotus, where when they dwelt in Europe, they were called the Bryges. So is that what we're seeing here, potentially maybe in this part of the map, for the Brigantes? And then when they came to Asia, they called themselves the Phrygians. So is that a movement or a invasion towards the Iberian Peninsula? Because we'd be looking for Phrygia in this region here, and we do have these dots for the Brigantes, if we want to say Portugal, and for Spain as well. But then there may be people saying, this is not Anatolia or Asia, because it says when they changed their home to Asia. So how can we explain the Iberian Peninsula being also referred to as Asia, the further back in time we go? We did say we're going to come back to this detail from this work by Professor John Campbell, how he spoke about this family of languages, which he calls the Khetan, or the Hittite. And the first one it has here, it says, this includes the Basque. So the Basque, according to this scholar, belongs in the Hittite language family. So if we go to the map, so we can learn about the region of the Basque. So we see here northern Spain. So he's saying that this language family of the Hittites should include the Basque. So it's very interesting, this region and this language, because it says here, Basque is geographically surrounded by Romance languages, but it is a language unrelated to them, and indeed to any other language in the world. It is the last remaining descendant of one of the pre-Indo-European languages of prehistoric Europe. So this is very intriguing, because this region of the Basque and this language could be giving us a glimpse into a past which is pre-Roman. So if we think about this Iberian Peninsula, what would it have looked like or sounded like before the Roman invasion and all this assimilation? This is a remnant of what it could have been. And this scholar is actually saying that it could be Hittite. So now we're going to see the significance, because if you think about the Hittites, it says Hittite, one of the Anatolian languages. So they're describing Hittite as an Anatolian language, or a language of Asia Minor. If you think about that now, we could also be saying that the Basque is a Hittite language, just to try to show how we may have to change our perspective on the Iberian Peninsula, how it could have been referred to as, or parts of it could have been referred to as Asia, because you could have languages in this region which could have been considered Asian with the Hittite. So it's very interesting, because there was something else I wanted to read from here. This part here, now I didn't write this is just the way it's written. Despite what is often thought, modern Western civilization did not start with the Greeks. So it's implying that it started with the Hittites. But notice it's saying Western civilization. And is that actually not what we're really thinking about, directly? That the Hittites may have had an influence on Western Europe, directly, because it's just interesting when you come across other researchers willing to consider something different as well. We looked at this researcher speaking about the Hittite Empire in the myth of the Atlantis. So this would be considering the Hittite Empire as an Atlantean empire. And the logic is actually very simple, because in the legends of Atlantis, Atlantis was a major rival to the Egyptians. And we were speaking in the previous video how the Hittites were a major rival to Egypt. So the logic is very simple to see how it could be connected. But then we'd be considering the Hittites as an Atlantic empire. And could it make sense with some of these things that we're coming across, just small remnants of what could be left of this influence of the Hittites in this region? And this map, could this be showing the history of the Bryges or the Phrygians? And yeah, what are the implications of that? We said we're going to come back to this detail of how Herodotus describes the Bryges as neighbors of the Macedonians in Europe. But before we do that, I just want to remind us of something we read from the page on the Balkans, how it describes this concept of the Balkan Peninsula being created by a German geographer. So we just have to wonder, what's going on here? Is this legitimate? This geography that's been created and given to us. So I just want to remind us about that, so we can, think about this, and are we justified to be questioning, what we've been presented with? Okay, so we looked at this map, and we're saying what could be the implications of this map? Could it be showing us the history of the Phrygians? But could it also be showing us where Macedonia was? Because Herodotus is saying that the Bryges were neighbors of the Macedonians. And we're thinking about, these dots for the Brigantes and the Burgundians. are they neighbors of the Macedonians? So let's explore this. Now this is going to be quite suggestive, so that's why I haven't circled Macedonia on our map. And remember, we also said that we haven't circled Thrace either, but we are starting to maybe change how we view Thrace, and the Thracians. If you want to know what video to look at, I'm speaking about this video where we were questioning the geography for European history with the Ghetto Dacians, and we were learning with the Getae how they were described as a Germanic nation. So we were saying, are we starting to pull Thrace towards Germania? But then what about Macedonia? I'd like to also think about some things we spoke about in the playlist, how Celts laid waste to Alexander the Great's homeland. And we've been speaking about how realistic is this Celtic expansion. So we're questioning this part here with this invasion and creating this kingdom of Galatia. But what about this part here for the invasion of Macedon? And remember, we're also already questioning the region to the south of Macedonia here. So it's like almost we've got Macedonia encircled, but not circled, if that kind of makes sense. But let's try explain what we want to question and put forward, even though it is going to be suggestive. So when I came across this work, the Hittite Empire, seeing the similarities with the Hittite and the Macedonic vocabulary, we also saw some similarities with the customs with the Hittites and the Macedonians when we did this video with Esau intermarrying into the Hittite Macedonian world. So I was just starting to picture or wonder, is there a connection with the Hittites and the Macedonians? Then I came across this detail where it says Macedonia, whose older name used to be Maketa and Makedon. And when I saw this Maketa, it made me think about all these things we've been learning about the Hittites, where the Egyptians referred to the Hittites as Kheta. So seeing that Kheta and Macedonia previously called Maketa, I have no way of knowing, but I'm thinking, are we looking at the land of the Hittites, the land of the Kheta? Also now, considering the similarities with the language and also the culture with the Hittites and the Macedonians as well, we've also been doing very interesting work with the Goths, using this scholar with this work, The Phoenician Origin of the Britons, Scots and the Anglo-Saxons, how we've seen the connections with the Goths and Macedonia. I'll show you that video as well. So it's also very important for the study how the Macedonians are connected with the Goths and the Goths. So this is going to be very suggestive, but we see these variations how Goth and Goat could be coming from good or gut. And the scholar goes on to say how this is why the Greco-Romans called the Goths Getae. So that was very important. We've been speaking about that quite a lot. So if we look at the map with the Goths, so we use this map with the Visigoths and the Ostrogoths. Notice how we have the Burgundians here. So this might be a nice way just to see it visually. So if we go back where it says that the Bryges were neighbors of the Macedonians, and the two tribes or peoples that we've got to explore this were the Burgundians and the Brigantes. So what we're asking is either the Brigantes or the Burgundians being neighbors of the Macedonians. But when we look at this map, here we have the Burgundians, and they're neighbors to the Goths. So it's very suggestive at the moment, but if Macedonia was referred to as Maketa, we really need to try explore this and see if we can find something to really support this, with Maketa being connected with or I should say potentially with the Hittites, and all these connections with the Goths and the Goths and the Getae. Hopefully you get an idea of what I'm trying to say, that could this map also be incorporating Macedonia? But I just can't be more specific at the moment. So that's why I'm leaving it uncircled until we can find more evidence, more to support this, so it can be more specific. But if we go to the story of Alexander's life on this page, so his campaigns and his conquests, and read this part, it says, Alexander then marched for 3 days to the Danube, encountering the Getae tribe on the opposite shore. So we just start to see how it's going to be important to know whereabouts on the Danube River this is happening, and really being sure about the Getae. So that's why I just wanted to show you that this video will be important, because if the Getae were a Germanic nation or a Germanic people, let me show you on the map, just in case you haven't watched that video. So we were looking for the Getae in Germania, but thinking now, are they Goths? So is Alexander actually campaigning in this region? And then would it make sense with all these things that we're saying about what we're learning from Herodotus, that the Bryges were neighbors of the Macedonians? But is that the Burgundians and the Brigantes? I'd like to go through this map with you as well for this video, because it could really bring things together. We're going to speak about Scudra. It says Scudra was a province or satrapy of the Persian Achaemenid Empire in Europe between 510 BC and 479 BC. So we're going into the period of the Persian Empire. Now this is the part we're going to focus on, which is very interesting. It says, it is believed to have comprised the lands now known as Thrace and Macedon. Now I don't know how the scholars and the professors are able to explain this, because what this is saying, we're going to learn that Scudra means Scythian. So this would be the satrapy of the Scythians. But we're not taught that the Thracians and the Macedonians were Scythians. So this is a little bit strange, but we will try make sense of it. And to do that, we're going to go on this campaign of Darius, what's known as his Scythian campaign, and then also working with this map. So it's going to be very, very interesting. So it says, the first Achaemenid military incursion in Southeast Europe started in 513 BC. Okay, so now this is the first thing that we have to mention, that we've been presented with this Persian Empire coming from the east, and they're speaking about this, this conquest of Southeast Europe. But we're thinking something different, and we'll explain that with this next point, where it says, when the Achaemenid king Darius I amassed an army and marched from Achaemenid-ruled Anatolia. So we're not going to explain that all again, but what we're thinking is that we're on the Iberian Peninsula. So parts of the Iberian Peninsula ruled by the Persians, and then coming into Thrace. And from there he crossed the Arda River. I'm using the other name for it because that's easier to pronounce than this one. And then proceeded through the valley route of the Hebros River. Okay, so now this is where it gets very intriguing, because we do have a river on the Iberian Peninsula called the Ebro. So this river here. And when you look at the Latin form of this, we see, you could call it the Iberus or the Hiberus. So we do have a very interesting potential connection for this river Hebros, which was a river in Thrace. But are we on the Iberian Peninsula? Okay, let's keep going. This was an act of conquest by Darius I, who during his march sent emissaries to the Thracians found on the path of his army, as well as to many other Thracian tribes over a wide area. All these people of Thrace, including the Odrysae, submitted to the Achaemenid king until his army reached the territory of the Thracian tribe of the Khetae. So this is where one of our previous videos becomes important. So we've mentioned this video where we were speaking about the Ghetto Dacians. If it loads, just so you can know where to look for this, but thinking about the Khetae as a Germanic nation. So that's why we have the Ghetto Dacians here for Germania. So what we're looking at here is Darius and this Persian conquest coming into Europe, and now he's coming against the Khetae who won't submit. So he has to conquer the Khetae, and then we see here Scythia, so we need to explain this. Okay, so the Khetae who live just south of the Danube River, but where on the Danube River becomes important. Okay, we're going to carry on here. After the resistance of the Khetae was defeated and they were forced to provide the Achaemenid army with soldiers, all the Thracian tribes between the Aegean Sea and the Danube River had been subjected by the Achaemenid Empire. Okay, so this is also another important point where it speaks about the Aegean Sea, because this could cause confusion if you're new to the channel. We're also questioning this part called Achaea, which will be connected with the Aegean as well. So yeah, it's important to try and catch up with some of these videos if you are new to the channel. At least watch the ending of the playlist to get the information. So we're also offering an explanation for that as well. Okay, so yeah, this is the part now to go into the Scythians. Once Darius had reached the Danube, he crossed the river and campaigned against the Scythians. So we're just trying to link these different videos from the playlist together, because we had this video, Was Germany Called Scythia? Now, I don't know if I explained it that well, so we're just going to go through this again so that it's also in this video. So we've used this source quite a lot, the Phoenician origin of the Britons, Scots, and Anglo-Saxons. Now we see here we have Saxon, so the Saxons, so a Germanic tribe. But to try explain this, I'm not sure if I explained it that well. So what this scholar is saying that this Phrygian cap, the people that wore this cap were also called the Sakae or the Sakae, which also then goes on to give us Saxon. And this is because of the goat. So the way I understand it is this Phrygian cap is covering the horn. So that's what this cap is presenting, that it's covering the horn. So it's some sort of worship of the goat or a goat cult. So it's the wearers of this cap that are being called either Sakae or Scythian, and it's even coming to us as Saxon. Now parts of Germany, if I just go to a map to show you, parts of Germany are still carrying this name. We see here Saxony. So what the scholar is saying is that we could be looking at Saxony, we could be looking at Sakae, but we could also call it Scythia, the Scythians. So that's what that Scottish antiquarian was saying, that he was looking at the historians and they seem to be calling this region of Germania Scythia. So it's very different from what we presented with for the Scythians. So we can see the potential of how the Scythian invasion of the Persians could work with this map, that once it conquered the Khetae, he was then trying to also conquer the Scythians, but ultimately that failed. And we're going to speak about the Phrygian cap in a different way. We're going to be speaking about the the Phrygian helmet. So it's kind of the same thing. So very interesting so far, but there's more, because we have here the Bebruces. We need to explain this, and it's really going to bring the video together. It says the Bebruces were a tribe of people who lived in Bithynia. According to Strabo, they were one of the many Thracian tribes that had crossed from Europe into Asia, although modern scholars have rather argued for a Celtic origin. So this is interesting that there seems to be some sort of confusion between Celtic and Thracian in some of these examples. Classical linguists considered the name of the Bebruces related to the Bryges or the Phrygians. So now we're going to see how this relates to the earlier part of our video. Based on the geographic proximity as well as the migration route of the Phrygians known from ancient myths. Okay, now the important part. B. Surgeon suggests that the name Bebruces could be related to the Celtic tribe, the Bebruces living in the Pyrenees, and the Bibroci dwelling in Britain. So we're going to focus on the Pyrenees. Let me show you the geography. So we have this mountain range which seems to form a natural border between France and Spain, and they're saying that there were a Celtic tribe called the Bebruces in the Pyrenees dwelling in this region. But this could really support what we were saying earlier on, because if we look at those details again, how they're saying that this name Bebruces could be related to the Bryges or Phrygians in connection with this migration route, and then saying, you know, crossing from Europe into Asia. So is that what we seeing here? How the Bebruces could be showing this migration from Europe into Asia that we were seeing with our other map. So let's see if I can find that quickly. So we were speaking about this migration. Could this map be showing us the history of the Phrygians, you know, coming from Europe into Phrygia? But it's from Europe into Asia that we're trying to understand. But the Bebruces could be showing us like a midpoint of this migration. So either this is already considered Asia, or they're coming into Asia. But the other important thing to really think about as well is that they are described as a Thracian tribe. So if we correct to connect the Bebruces with this Celtic tribe, that also will support what we're starting to think about for Thrace, because we're thinking about the Ebro River being connected as a Thracian river. And now we would have another Thracian related tribe in this region, as well as the Ghetto Dacians. Yeah, I think the Getae and the Dacians are considered Thracian related. That's what we were trying to say about, are we starting to pull Thrace or the Thracians towards Germania? But now we're starting to learn more about the Thracians, or what Thrace may have looked like. So yeah, that's very interesting for the Bebruces. To finish this, I would like to try explain why Thrace and Macedon would be in the satrapy of Scudra or Scythia. And to do that, we're going to speak about the Phrygian helmet or the Thracian helmet. So we said that it's going to be connected to the Phrygian cap. So it's going to look very similar to the Phrygian cap, just it's going to be a helmet worn by the warriors. So it says worn by the Thracians, the Dacians, also in Magna Graecia. So that would be the southern part of Italy. But importantly, is also worn by the Macedonian. So the cavalry in King Philip's army. So we have the Macedonians and we have the Thracians wearing this helmet. So I think this could be the explanation. So just to recap, how those wearing this helmet, this Thracian helmet or the Phrygian cap, according to this scholar, they would be referred to as the Sakae or the Saka, or even the Saxons. And just to show you the etymology that this also connects to the Scythians, if we go to the page on the Saka or the Sakae, we notice the etymology connects to the Scutes or the Scudra or the Scythian. So I'll try to explain it the best that I can. If we look at this potential meaning, so they say Saka, to go or roam or to seek, and thus you get nomad. So thinking about the Scythians as nomads, so that's what we learned when we saw the descriptions for the Scythians. They were described as a nomadic people. And then we also have another potential etymology of to propel, to shoot, so archer. So when I was researching, or trying to research for this video on Scythia or the Scythians, if I can just find it quickly. So this one here. I noticed some scholars saying that some tribes were labeled or called Scythians and they weren't actually Scythians. And that's going to create a lot of confusion when you're trying to think about Scythian history, who are actually the real Scythians. So the way I'm thinking about it at the moment, my best take on it will be that people who are, let me say rather tribes or nations that, let's say, are nomadic or steppe people who are wearing this helmet, you could describe them as Scythian, and that would be correct. But you could also have tribes or nations that weren't a steppe people, or let's say a nomadic people wearing this helmet, and they would also be called Scythian. So I think for me, it's more about the pointed hat or the helmet, the pointed helmet or the Phrygian cap to be called a Scythian. So it's like an identity or a culture or a cult. I think one of our viewers was trying to, explain that it could be more about an identity connected to a cult, rather than ethnicity. But then if you have people or tribes that are nomadic or a steppe culture and you label them Scythian, but they weren't actually connected to this culture, this religion, or this identity, that might actually be a false label, to call them Scythian. So let me know if that makes sense, because we don't see the Thracians and the Macedonians as Scythians, but to the Persians, they must have seen the Thracians and Macedonians as Scythians, to call this satrapy Scudra or Scythia. And is it really about, the wearers of this helmet, this, the style helmet? This is our map or our picture that we've been working on. These are our three playlists: the Roman Empire and the Holy Land playlist, the North Africa and the Mediterranean playlist or series, and exploring the Celtic world. And I'm really glad that we've been able to come this far. If we think about this video we did 8 months ago, did Cyrus the Great conquer the whole land of Ethiopia, reaching to Spain? At this point, the work that we were doing, it might have seemed very strange, considering a Persian empire reaching to Spain. But now if we think about this video, where we're really starting to see a picture that can actually make sense, with the sources, with the information of a Persian invasion of Europe, but is it Western Europe? And I was also thinking about how we've been speaking about Hannibal's route of invasion, the famous Carthaginian general. So an invasion from North Africa coming through the Iberian Peninsula, but his goal was Rome, to try fight back against this Roman Empire. So a bit of a different goal, but it just makes me think about this this weakness of Europe coming from North Africa through the Iberian Peninsula. So that's very interesting. So yeah, it's going to be, I still think it's going to take a bit more work. I think we should wait for more discoveries, for more things to come out, regarding Thrace and Macedonia, before we try, circle them and say that we're confident that we know where Macedonia was, or we have a better idea of Thrace. But I think we are learning a lot more. I think we've got a better idea about the Macedonians and the Thracians coming through this work and these playlists or these series. This might be the last video of 2023, and then we will see what comes our way in 2024. The next video will either be maybe a final video for this playlist, exploring the Celtic world, or it could be a video outside the playlist. So we'll have to wait and see. Thank you for all your comments and for those that are liking the videos, and thank you for all the support, whether it's sharing information or whether it's been maybe sharing some kind comments. Even, some of the viewers, send a blessing. So that's really appreciated, and yeah, helps the the spirit of the channel to carry on. And we've kind of gone through this together, all the ups and downs. So yeah, take care, and we'll see you in the new year.